Hi, you're watching Reddit Confessions. What you're about to hear started with one drink, 3 words, and the kind of silence that can't be filled with music. He's just being playful. That's what she whispered to me, after I'd just been mocked in front of a crowd of strangers who all somehow knew my wife better than I did. But before I get ahead of myself, let me paint you a picture. Imagine walking into a room where everyone already knows the punchline to a joke you don't even realize is about you. That was me, 38 minutes into Shayla's company party. I wasn't supposed to be there. She said I could skip it. You don't like crowds, she reminded me. But I came anyway, not to prove anything, just because something in her voice felt different when she said it. A little too casual, like she hoped I wouldn't come. That's what got me dressed. That's what got me on the train. That's what got me into the 34th floor of an office that smelled like glass and ego. I remember standing by the entrance, coat still half on, and catching the exact second he wrapped his arms around her, like he'd done it 100 times. My wife, in a dress I'd never seen, laughing in a way I hadn't heard since. Well, before she got promoted, nobody noticed me, not until she did. And when she finally waved me over, it felt like I was crashing my own relationship. Then came the drink. One. Just one. Poured by a man named Stellan. Yes, Stellan, with white sleeves rolled perfectly and a tattoo of a koi fish swimming across his forearm. Ellery, right? The writer? He asked me. I blinked. Yeah. How'd you? Shayla talks about you all the time, he said. And then, after a beat, mostly good things. Everyone laughed. I didn't. The room shifted after that. Every laugh felt sharper. Every glance lingered too long. And I became hyper-aware of the way Stellan hovered near her shoulder, like gravity was pulling him there. And then, without warning, without invitation, he raised his glass and said, "So, wanna play a game?" Shayla's eyes widened, but she didn't stop him. "Let's see how well you really know your wife," he added. Someone turned down the music. The group circled in. I looked at Shayla. She smiled. Not warm. Not nervous. Smug. I should have left. I knew I should have left. Instead, I sat down. 10 questions, Stellan said. If you get less than half right, you'll do something for me. My mouth was dry. Like what? Oh, nothing bad, he grinned. You'll just have to stand up in front of the team and read a love letter to Shayla. More laughter. They loved it. I agreed. I wish I hadn't, because by question 5, I'd already learned 2 things. Shayla's favorite author isn't me anymore. Apparently, she and Stellan have inside jokes about things I've never even heard of. By question 7, people stopped giggling. They started feeling sorry for me. By question 9, someone handed me a napkin. I thought it was for the drink sweat. It wasn't. My hands were shaking. And when question 10 landed, what color was Shayla's dress on our trip to Carmel last fall? She tilted her head. I answered, red. She whispered, it was green. Stellan clapped. People cheered. And Shayla? She leaned in and whispered those 3 words. He's just playful. But I wasn't laughing, because I realized something in that moment. This wasn't about games. This wasn't about drinks. This was about me not being invited into her world anymore. And they were all celebrating it. I didn't take the elevator down. I walked 34 floors. Not to be dramatic, though I guess I'm wired that way, but because I couldn't stand being in a box with anyone else. Not after what just happened. I needed space. Space to process how my own wife let another man undress our marriage in front of her colleagues like it was some kind of office icebreaker. By the time I got outside, it was raining. Of course it was. The kind of cold, needle-fine drizzle that soaked you without sound. I stood there like a fool, drenched, trying to figure out where everything went sideways. But the truth is, I knew. I'd known for a while. I just didn't want to admit it because if I did, then I'd have to admit that I'd been living in a lie made of silence and assumptions. I got home to an empty apartment. She didn't come with me. Said she was going for drinks with the team. I didn't argue. I didn't even ask who the team included. I just nodded like the doormat I'd apparently become and let the door click shut behind me. I sat at the kitchen table for a long time, My cat, Finley, hopped onto my lap, probably confused why I was still wearing my soggy blazer. I didn't have the energy to move. I just sat there, fingers clutching the armrest, staring at the wall clock like maybe the seconds would tick backward and give me a do-over. I thought about the questions again. The game. Her face. Not once did she try to help me. Not once did she say, "Oh, that's not fair, he wouldn't know that." Not once did she stand up for me. Instead, she let Stellan, a man I'd met literally minutes earlier, turn me into a punchline. A sad one. The kind of punchline that gets polite laughs and long, pitiful glances. I started drafting a message to her. Something simple. "We need to talk." But even that felt stupid. What would we talk about? How she's changed. How she doesn't respect me anymore. How I'm the last person she looks for in a crowded room. I deleted the message. Around 1 a.m., the door opened. I didn't turn around. I just listened to her heels click across the hardwood like they were tapping out a message in Morse code. "This is not your home anymore." She stopped behind me. "You're up," she said, like she was surprised. I still didn't turn. I just nodded once. My voice was lodged somewhere beneath the bruises on my pride. "I didn't mean for that to get out of hand," she added. Her voice was casual, like we were talking about a dinner that went cold, not a night where my dignity got publicly torched. "Did you have fun?" I finally asked. She didn't answer right away. "I did," she admitted. "But it got weird after you left. People asked where you went." I almost laughed. Weird? They made a circus out of me, and now she was surprised I didn't stick around for the cleanup? "Did Stellan walk you home?" I asked too quickly. She bristled. I felt it. "He's just a coworker," she said. I finally turned around. "I've seen coworkers. I've been one. That's not what he is." Her mouth tightened. "You're reading too much into this." "No," I said. "I'm reading exactly what was written in front of everyone. In big, bold, humiliating letters." Silence. I thought maybe she'd soften. Maybe she'd realize how much it hurt. Maybe she'd sit down, take my hand, and say anything that didn't sound like a script. Instead, she poured herself a glass of wine and smiled. Not a full smile, just a flicker. That's when I realized this wasn't just indifference. It was power. She liked it. She liked having someone at work who made her feel like she was above me. She liked being admired, being untouchable, being the woman who could get away with everything because her husband never fights back. And maybe, just maybe, she liked watching me fall apart because it made her feel more together. I stood up, finally shedding that soaked blazer, and said, "If you wanted someone who worshipped you without question, you should have stayed at work." She didn't respond, just swirled her wine. But I knew she heard me. That night, I slept on the couch. Not because she told me to, but because I didn't want to be near someone who could watch me burn and still ask if I wanted dessert. And as I laid there in the dark, I realized something far worse than betrayal had crept into our lives. Contempt. The kind that doesn't show up in yelling or cheating or slamming doors, but in polite smiles, rigged games, and the slow, deliberate erosion of respect. And I knew this was only the beginning. The next morning felt fake, like the apartment had been emptied and rest-aged by a stranger trying to convince me my life was still intact. The kitchen still smelled like her expensive vanilla rosemary candles, the ones I used to find comforting. Now they just smelled like denial. She was already gone when I woke up. No note, no text, just a half-empty mug by the sink and her side of the bed left perfectly untouched, because I hadn't been in it. I dragged myself to my desk, opened my laptop, and tried to write. I stared at a blinking cursor for over 40 minutes. Nothing came. My mind kept circling the same questions. Was that party planned? Was the game some twisted inside joke they'd rehearsed? Was Stellan more than a coworker? I hate that I even had to ask that, but it wouldn't leave me alone. So I opened her Instagram, not something I usually do, and started scrolling. She barely ever posted anything about me, which I used to chalk up to privacy. But now it felt like omission. Her feed was full of work events, coffee photos, blurry sunsets, and increasingly frequent shots of the office rooftop with people I didn't recognize. Except one. Him. Stellan. A few posts back, I found a boomerang video. Shayla laughing. Stellan tossing a grape into her mouth. They were sitting way too close. The caption read, "Lunch breaks get dangerous when it's Stellan. Betrays you like a circus act." 100 likes. A dozen comments. I wasn't mentioned once. I stared at that post until my vision blurred. Then I did something I hadn't done since we started dating. Something I swore I'd never become the kind of guy to do. I opened her iPad. She'd left it charging in the bedroom. No password. She always said she didn't need one because we don't keep secrets. I wasn't looking for messages. Not really. I told myself I was just curious. But curiosity turned into nausea in about 10 seconds. There was a text preview on the lock screen. It wasn't from Stellan. It was from someone named Kara, one of the women I vaguely remembered from the party. They'd hugged like best friends who go way back, but I hadn't spoken to her. The message read, "You didn't tell him about Vegas, right?" I swear I thought he already knew. My bad. Grimacing face. Vegas? We haven't been to Vegas. Not since her cousin's wedding 3 years ago, and I was definitely there that time. My hands shook. I tapped the message. It opened a full thread. Kara had sent several texts the night before, and Shayla had replied. Kara. OMG, he looked so awkward. Kara. Stellan went a little too hard though. Lol. Kara. Should we tone it down next time? Shayla. He'll survive. He always does. Shayla. And no. Let him see what real chemistry looks like. Kara. Girl. Kara. What about the hotel thing though? Kara. You never told him? Shayla. Why would I? That last message made me physically nauseous. I put the iPad down like it was on fire. My heart was pounding in my throat. I walked into the kitchen, opened the fridge, stared inside, and closed it again. I didn't even know what I was doing anymore. Let him see what real chemistry looks like. That line hit me harder than anything Stellan ever said. Because it wasn't just about the party. It wasn't just about public humiliation or office games. It was about how she saw me. As a joke. As a placeholder. As someone who didn't need to be protected from the truth. Because I didn't matter enough to be hurt by it. I didn't confront her right away. I waited. I waited until dinner, when she came home like nothing happened. She kicked off her shoes, gave me a peck on the forehead, and asked if I wanted Thai or Indian. I said I wasn't hungry. She said, "Suit yourself," and started scrolling through DoorDash. Then I asked, calmly, too calmly maybe, "What happened in Vegas?" She froze. Slowly, she lowered her phone. Then, without missing a beat, she said, "Seriously? You're going through my messages now?" That was her defense. Not "what do you mean?" Not "it's not what you think." Not even "let me explain." Just immediate blame. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. The silence did the heavy lifting. She eventually stood up, grabbed her purse and said, "I'm not doing this tonight." And then she left. Just like that. And I stood there, in my own apartment, wondering how many nights like that I'd survived thinking things would fix themselves. I didn't sleep that night, because for the first time I started imagining a life without her. Not as punishment, but maybe as mercy. For myself. I always used to believe that when something's wrong, you feel it in your gut. But now I realize the truth is quieter. It's not a scream in your stomach. It's a whisper in your mirror. A hollow expression. A version of yourself you don't recognize. Blinking back at you like they've been through something you're still too scared to name. That was me on Wednesday morning. I stared at my reflection in the bathroom mirror for a full 5 minutes before brushing my teeth. Not because I was tired, though I was, but because I kept trying to figure out whether I looked like someone who'd been cheated on. I didn't. That made it worse. When Shayla came home late that night, she had a plastic bag of takeout in one hand and an unreadable look in her eyes. Not guilt. Not remorse. Just calculation. Like she was measuring how much she needed to say to keep me from digging further. "I'm not sleeping with Stellan," she said. No hello. No apology. Just that. I blinked. "Okay," I replied. Because what do you even say to that? She set the bag on the counter, kicked off her heels, and leaned against the sink like she was exhausted from all the pretending. The Vegas thing, she added, was a business trip. That's it. Kara always blows things out of proportion. But you said. I said nothing. You read private messages and assumed things. No, I corrected. You said, why would I tell him? That's not nothing. She rolled her eyes, opened the takeout container, and said, I'm tired of defending myself every time you spiral. That's the thing about emotional manipulation. It doesn't always come with shouting or name-calling. Sometimes, it shows up in your own house in the voice of someone you love, calmly convincing you that your pain is a personality flaw. I didn't push further that night. Not because I believed her, because I needed proof. Something real. Something undeniable. So I did what I promised myself I wouldn't do again. I opened her laptop. I know, I sound like the villain now, but desperate people don't think in morals, they think in survival. It wasn't hard to find. She'd left her Gmail open. I typed Vegas into the search bar. A few flight confirmations came up, nothing incriminating. But then I noticed something odd. An Uber receipt, sent to her personal email, not her work one. The drop-off location, the L&E Hotel and Suites. Room 1504. I copied the name, opened a new tab, and found their site. Boutique luxury. All glass and leather and romantic getaway packages. It wasn't the kind of place you book for a strategy meeting. That receipt was dated 6 weeks ago. Right in the middle of the team offsite, she told me, was at some dull resort near Fresno. I sat there for a long time, scrolling through my own mental timeline. What had I done that weekend? I remembered ordering sushi, watching old indie movies on the projector screen. I'd even sent her a photo of the cat wearing my hoodie. She'd replied with a heart emoji, while she was in a hotel with someone else. I didn't sleep again that night. I didn't even lie down. I stayed on the couch, lights off, waiting for the sun like it owed me answers. She noticed something was different the next day. She asked me if I was okay while putting on her mascara like it was any other Thursday. I said I was fine, and I smiled. But inside I was watching the last strands of trust rot from the roots. And I still hadn't even told her what I knew. I wasn't ready, because once you confront the truth, it changes you. It takes whatever was left of the person you used to be and burns it down in real time. I needed to be sure, so I made a plan. If she had lied about Vegas, there was a second person involved. Someone who wasn't expecting to be followed. Someone who hadn't rehearsed their alibi. That night, I downloaded a burner number app. I messaged Stellan. Just one line. We need to talk. Alone. I know what happened in room 1504. His reply came back 5 minutes later. Who is this? I didn't answer. I just smiled. Because if there was nothing to hide, he would have had nothing to fear. There's a unique kind of silence that follows the moment you realize you can't go back. Not the silence of loneliness. Not even the silence after a fight. It's the silence that comes after clarity. When you finally see the truth in its final, ugly form and realize that denial isn't coming to rescue you anymore. That was the silence that filled the living room when Stellan replied again. His second message came at 2:41 a.m. Hours after my initial one. Ellery, he guessed, which meant Shayla had told him everything. My name, my number, probably even that I'd never fight back, that I'd always just sulk and cry quietly like I was writing the world's saddest poetry anthology. I didn't respond, not right away. Instead, I took my phone and sat on the floor by the balcony door, looking out at the empty city street below. Everything looked small from up here, fragile. Like if I pressed hard enough against the glass, it would all shatter. By the time the sun came up, I still hadn't replied. And by the time Shayla walked into the kitchen with her oversized coffee mug and zero shame, I knew I wouldn't be able to hold this charade much longer. You're quiet again, she said. I shrugged. Didn't sleep well. She didn't ask why. Just scrolled through her phone, probably waiting for her Slack channel to explode with startup jargon and emoji reactions to a spreadsheet. And then she froze. Only for a second. A twitch. A pause in her finger that only someone desperately watching would notice. She turned her phone face down on the counter. I didn't ask what it was. I already knew. Stellan had messaged her. Maybe about me. Maybe about room 1504. Maybe about whether it was time to panic. But Shayla was good. Too good. She smiled and kissed the top of my head like she wasn't thinking about how fast the walls were closing in. I spent the entire day walking around the city. No destination. Just thoughts. Paranoia. Anger that kept shifting into heartbreak and back again like a pendulum with no rhythm. I couldn't decide if I wanted to confront her that night or wait for more. Something about dragging it out made me feel like I still had control, even though I didn't. That evening, I came home to an empty apartment again. She'd texted earlier. Client dinner. Don't wait up. Blue heart. The heart emoji nearly made me laugh. If you can call that hollow, breathless noise laughter. But then, around 9:15, I heard a vibration from her iPad on the nightstand. Another message preview appeared. It wasn't from Kara this time. It was from Stellan. And the message said, "You said he didn't know the hotel name. What do we do now?" I stared at it. Then again. And again. And then I opened the full thread. There weren't a lot of messages, but the ones that were there told me everything I needed. They joked about how easy I was to fool. They planned the Vegas trip weeks in advance. They talked about how I never ask questions. But the worst part? There was a photo, taken from behind, her in a bathrobe, a champagne glass in her hand. His reflection barely visible in the hotel mirror. The caption read, "This room is soundproof, just like our little secret." My hands went numb. I dropped the iPad on the bed. This wasn't speculation anymore. This wasn't misreading things. This was betrayal in high definition. And still, somehow, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't smash anything. I just sat there, like my soul had been unplugged. When Shayla finally came home, hours later, I was on the couch. Lights off. No TV. Just me and the sound of the key turning in the lock like it had no idea it was about to open a crime scene. She walked in, humming something. She paused when she saw me. "Why are you sitting in the dark?" I looked up slowly. "You were right," I said. She tilted her head. "Right about what?" That I'd survive. There was a flicker of panic in her eyes. Just a flicker. But I caught it. She took a step closer. "Ellery, what's going on?" I didn't answer. I just stood, walked past her, and whispered as I passed, "Check your iPad." And I went straight into the bedroom and locked the door. Not because I was trying to punish her, but because I knew the soundproof lie was about to collapse into the loudest silence of her life. The knock came 37 minutes later. 3 soft taps on the bedroom door. Not desperate, not angry, just hollow, like she was testing if I was still on the other side at all. I didn't answer. Behind the door, she hovered. I could hear her breathing, that kind of shallow, contained breath you take when you're holding back tears or trying to swallow panic. Part of me expected her to burst in. Shayla wasn't the wait-and-see type. She was decisive, ruthless when she needed to be, but she didn't open the door. Instead, she said my name. Once. "Ellery?" I kept quiet. Then she said it again, and this time her voice cracked like someone trying to rehearse vulnerability. It wasn't guilt. It was damage control. "I saw what you saw," she finally said. "But it's not what you think." I closed my eyes. That line. The oldest one in the book. The one liars keep tucked in their back pocket for moments just like this. I spoke calmly, flatly. "I saw your back in his mirror, Shayla. I saw your glass. Your smile. That wasn't an accident. That was posed." There was a long pause. Then, "He saved it without asking me. That was supposed to be private." I actually laughed. Sharp and humorless. "That's your defense? That the evidence should have stayed private?" She didn't respond. The silence stretched, long and awkward, like the air itself was uncomfortable witnessing us come apart in slow motion. I finally stood up and opened the door. She jumped slightly, startled by how close I was on the other side. Her eyes were red, her hands clenched. She wasn't wearing her work clothes anymore. Just an old hoodie of mine she hadn't touched in over a year. A choice. A tactic. I walked past her without a word, straight into the living room. She followed. "I'm sorry," she said. "I didn't mean for it to happen. You planned it, Shayla. The hotel, the cover story, the lies. You coordinated it with your friend so I wouldn't suspect anything. That's not a mistake. That's an operation." She winced. I pointed to the couch. "How many nights did I sit right there, wondering why you were acting different, why you laughed less, why I stopped feeling like a person and started feeling like an afterthought. And the whole time it was him. I didn't do it because I didn't love you," she said, as if that meant something. "You did it because you don't love me." That hit harder. She looked away, blinking hard. "I never meant to fall for someone else," she whispered. "But things got confusing. I nearly lost it at that." "Confusing?" I snapped. "Do you know what confusion looks like, Shayla? It looks like your husband staring at his ceiling every night wondering what he did wrong. It looks like me reading receipts from hotels I've never been to. It looks like a man trying to convince himself he's not being played by the person he trusted most in this world." Her mouth opened, closed. She had no words, so I gave her mine. "I don't need you to explain it. I don't need you to fix it. I needed you not to break it in the first place." She looked like she wanted to cry, and for a second, just a second, I wanted to comfort her. Isn't that insane? I wanted to hug the woman who destroyed me, but that's what love does, doesn't it? It makes you ache for the very hands that pulled you apart. "I'm going to stay at Noah's for a few days," I said, grabbing my coat. Noah was my cousin, the only person who hadn't judged me when I quit my job to chase writing. The only one who hadn't asked, "So how's that going?" Like it was a punchline. Shayla panicked. "Wait, you're leaving now?" I turned back. "You already did." And with that, I walked out. She didn't chase me. That told me everything I still needed to know. Noah didn't ask questions when I showed up with nothing but a backpack and a paper bag full of frozen waffles I hadn't wanted to leave behind. He just looked at me, really looked at me, and said, "You want the futon or the air mattress?" I chose the futon. That night, I slept beneath a poster of a 90s horror film and a shelf full of half-built Lego sets. I stared at the ceiling fan turning slowly, squeaking just slightly with every third rotation. I was surrounded by the childish clutter of a single man's apartment, and yet I felt safer there than I had in my own home in months. In the morning, Shayla hadn't texted. Not a single message. Not "Are you okay?" Not "Where did you go?" Not even "Come home." You'd think after being together 6 years, married for 4, she'd have something to say. But no. It was as if I'd evaporated. Like the moment I stepped outside our apartment, I stopped existing in her story, until I checked my email. There was a message from someone I didn't know. No subject line. Just an address I didn't recognize and a name I'd never seen before. The message read, "I shouldn't be reaching out, but you deserve to know it wasn't the first time." I sat up so fast I nearly kicked over Noah's Xbox controller. I reread the line, and again. My hands were trembling as I clicked the sender's name. The email was signed, "Kellen, I used to work with Shayla." That name sparked something. Distant. A vague memory. I remembered Shayla mentioning him once. Ages ago. A junior designer who couldn't keep up with deadlines and was too emotional for agency work. She'd said he got reassigned to a remote division. Apparently not the whole truth. I hit reply, typed cautiously. "What do you mean, not the first time? You're referring to Stellan, right?" He replied within the hour. What followed was a 500-word message that changed everything I thought I knew about the woman I'd married. He wasn't referring to Stellan. He was referring to someone before him. A creative director from 2 years ago. A man named Brent. A different city. A different office. Same pattern. Business trip. Hotel receipts. Silence afterward. He said he never confronted her, but he saw it all happen from the sidelines. He tried to warn HR. He tried to speak up. But Shayla had more power, more sway, and a very convincing version of events. He said he left not because of burnout, but because of her. "She's good at making you think it's your fault," he wrote. Don't fall for it. I did. She twists guilt into a mirror until you're apologizing for her mistakes. I didn't respond. Couldn't. I just sat there, blinking at the screen like I was reading the final chapter of a book I thought was still being written. But the book had ended a long time ago. I'd just been too slow to close it. That afternoon, I packed my things again. Not to go back, but because I knew what I had to do. I needed one final conversation. Not for closure. Not for forgiveness. Just for truth. When I walked into the apartment, it was too quiet. That fake, eerily perfect kind of quiet that only happens in curated spaces like showrooms or crime scenes. Her purse was on the counter. Her heels by the door. She was home. I found her in the bedroom, folding laundry like it was any other Sunday. She didn't look surprised to see me. You came back, she said. No, I answered. I came to say goodbye. She flinched, just barely. But I saw it. I dropped my bag on the floor and pulled out a printed copy of the email. I didn't say a word, just handed it to her. She read it. Her expression didn't change, but her hands did. They trembled. You've done this before, I said. You cheated before Stellan. You lied before this. It wasn't a moment of weakness. It's who you are. Her lips parted. Her eyes welled up. For the first time since all of this began. She looked small. Not confident. Not polished. Just human. I was lonely, she whispered. So was I replied. And I didn't burn anyone for warmth. She sat down on the edge of the bed. I remained standing. I let the silence settle in. Not the heavy, haunted silence of confusion, but the kind that comes when there's nothing left to protect. And then she said something I will never forget. You were too gentle, Ellery. I needed someone who made me feel scared to lose them. I felt my stomach turn. Not because it was cruel, but because it was true. She didn't cheat because I was absent. She cheated because I was kind. She didn't crave love. She craved dominance, control, the kind of thrill I never gave her because I was too busy giving her safety. I walked toward the door. She didn't stop me, and just as I stepped out, she said, You'll never find someone who understands you like I did. I paused, turned back for one final line. You never understood me at all. You just knew I wouldn't fight back. And I walked out, not fast, not broken, just done. I didn't cry that night. That surprised me. I thought when the final thread snapped, when the door finally closed for good, I'd collapse under the weight of it all. That I'd fall apart in the backseat of a cab or on Noah's futon or in some corner of the city where nobody knew my name. But instead I felt clear. Not happy. Not yet. But clear. And that was new. That was enough. I spent the next few weeks in slow motion, living out of a borrowed suitcase, relearning how to cook for one, avoiding mutual friends who texted me things like, I don't want to take sides. But, as if betrayal was just a quirky misunderstanding, Shayla signed the divorce papers without protest. No drama, no begging, just a neat little envelope in the mail with her initials at the bottom, like she was signing off on an old lease. The apartment we once shared went on the market. I didn't take much with me, just a few books, my old record player, and a framed photo of my late mother, because she would have told me I was worth more than staying somewhere I wasn't respected. I started freelancing again. Small gigs at first, copy editing, guest blog posts, and then, slowly, people started reading what I had to say. My inbox filled up. One of my essays, about the silence between two people who once knew each other completely, got picked up by an indie magazine. They called it hauntingly honest. I smiled at that, because honesty was something I had finally learned how to give myself. And then, one day, at a bookstore downtown where I used to hide during long lunch breaks, someone approached me. She was browsing the poetry shelf. Mid-30s, tired eyes, soft voice. She asked if the book I was holding was any good. I said I hadn't read it yet, but I liked the dedication on the first page. She asked what it said. I showed her. It read, For the ones who stayed kind, even when the world wasn't. She smiled, and so did I. We didn't exchange numbers. No romantic cliché. Just a real moment, shared between two strangers who didn't need to perform for each other. And for the first time in a long time, that felt like hope. Not the loud kind, not the movie montage kind, but the quiet kind you carry in your chest like a small match that refuses to go out. I don't know where life goes from here, but I know where I won't go again. I won't return to a home that only welcomed me when I was silent. I won't beg to be loved by someone who only valued me when I was invisible. And I won't ever forget the man I became because someone else decided I wasn't enough. Because I was enough. I still am. And if you've ever found yourself sitting in the dark, wondering what you did wrong, maybe you didn't do anything wrong at all. Maybe you were just in the wrong story. Now it's your turn. Tell me in the comments, have you ever ignored a red flag because you were scared of what it would confirm? Or maybe you saw yourself in this story. In the quiet moments, the confusion, the strength it took to leave. We'd love to hear from you. This has been Reddit Confessions, where the truth doesn't always come easy, but it always arrives in the end. Until next time, take care of yourselves. And remember, kindness isn't weakness. It's the start of real strength.